These are the 7 levels of zombie games. Level 1, trash games. These games aren't just bad, they're some of the worst games I have ever played, especially the last entry. But let's kick it off with The Day Before. The Day Before died faster than its player base, teaching you nothing except that MMO promises are lies. Zombies with AI dumber than actual corpses, no survival mechanics, and a world where looting a pharmacy during an outbreak looks like a boring office job. Reality check. Urban scavenging is suicide hordes, collapsing infrastructure. Everyone had the same idea. This game makes it look easy. You'd die thinking it'd be this simple. This is not the worst game though, Walking Dead. Destinies makes the apocalypse incredibly boring, which should honestly be impossible. Zombies move like molasses, there's no resource management, and it teaches you the deadliest lesson of all, overconfidence. You'd waltz into a real outbreak thinking you can just walk faster than shamblers, then find yourself surrounded because you didn't take them seriously. Overconfidence is the #1 killer in disasters. This game weaponizes it. But the worst zombie game of all time goes to Amy. Amy tried to teach you that protecting someone vulnerable gets you both killed, which is actually true but made it so unplayable you learn nothing except that broken controls kill you faster than zombies. In reality, yeah, kids are liabilities in survival situations. This game accidentally makes that point by being torture to play. All 3 share the same fatal flaw. They make survival look manageable when it's not. Remember that we'll come back to it when I show you what real difficulty looks like, but this was the lowest level of zombie games. And throughout the video I will show you 6 more levels, each one getting more insane, starting with the next one, which gives us some actual playable games. Level 2, basic games. State of Decay. 2 teaches you that survival is a group effort, which is true. You're not going lone wolf in a real outbreak unless you want to die alone. You recruit survivors, build a base, scavenge supplies, and deal with internal drama, which mirrors reality. Humans are messy and selfish, even when death is outside the walls. The plague zombies add a biological threat, forcing you to manage infection risks, which is smart. Real pandemics spread through contact and contamination. But here's where it goes soft. The game lets you fix mistakes too easily. Run out of food? Just drive to another house and loot it, no problem. Someone dies? Recruit a replacement? Horde attacks? Defend for a few minutes and it's over. Real resource scarcity means once the nearby areas are picked clean, you're done. No respawning loot, no convenient supply drops, and defending a base against sustained attacks would exhaust you in days, not save you. The game teaches the right checklist, but not the crushing weight of actually doing it. Keep that in mind because the games coming later don't give you that mercy. Zombie Army is all about lining up slow motion headshots on zombie Nazis, which, let's be honest, is deeply satisfying, but also completely useless for actual survival. The game is horde mode mayhem, endless waves of undead soldiers shambling at you while you mow them down with sniper rifles, which in reality would be the absolute worst weapon choice for a zombie outbreak. Snipers are loud, attract every infected in a mile radius, require precision ammo you can't replace, and leave you helpless if anything gets close. The game makes it look cool, but you'd be dead in minutes trying this in real life. Plus, the supernatural angle, zombie Hitler, occult resurrection, makes it clear this isn't grounded survival, it's schlock horror fun. At least it's honest about being ridiculous. Unlike some games that pretend to teach you something and don't. ZombiU lands in the basic tier because it tries to be hardcore with permadeath and survival tension, but the execution is clunky enough that it teaches bad habits as much as good ones. This Wii U exclusive was all about one bite, you're dead, respawn as a new survivor, and your old character is now a zombie carrying your stuff, which brutal and kind of realistic. The survival lesson here is decent. Every encounter matters, infection is instant and lethal, and you can't tank hits. That's real. In an outbreak, one bite, one scratch, you're done. There's no health bar to refill, just slow death or immediate turning depending on the infection. The permadeath mechanic forces caution, which is smart. Real survival is about avoiding conflict, not winning it. But the game's clunky controls and slow combat mean you die as much from fighting the interface as from zombies, which undermines the lesson. You'd learn to be cautious, sure, but also frustrated. And frustration in a real crisis gets you killed because you make rash decisions. Level 2 games really nail the base of what makes a zombie apocalypse game good, but they just haven't perfected any extra stuff in my opinion. Though, don't get me wrong, they are not bad. Unlike the controversial take coming up, you might hate me for. Level 3, mid-games. Some of these mid-games teach you more than the ones ranked higher. Not because they're better designed, but because they accidentally nail specific truths about outbreak survival. Let's start with the most divisive one. Days Gone hits mid-tier because it nails the terror of hordes, but wraps it in a biker power trip that undercuts the survival horror. You play a drifter in Oregon dealing with freakers, which are fast infected, not undead, and they swarm in hundreds, which is genuinely terrifying and kind of realistic for how fast pandemics spread. The game teaches you that hordes are unstoppable, which is true. 100 infected running at you at once. You're not fighting that, you're running or dying. The bike mechanics force resource management. You need fuel, repairs, and upgrades, which mirrors real vehicle dependence in rural areas. No car, you're stranded. The freakers are also animalistic, attracted to sound and movement, which is smart. Real infected behavior would be reactive, not strategic. But here's where it wobbles. The game lets you go full action hero, crafting explosives, setting traps, and mowing down hordes with machine guns, which, sure, feels epic, but isn't survival. It's extermination. In reality, you'd avoid hordes entirely. They're too dangerous, too numerous. You'd sneak around, not set up elaborate ambushes unless you had military resources, and even then, it's risky. Here's what Days Gone gets right that most games don't. Hordes are unstoppable. Not hard, not challenging, genuinely unbeatable without perfect positioning and resources. The game shows you 100 infected can overrun military defenses in minutes, which is accurate. Where it lies is making you think you can fight back with enough explosives. You can't. The real lesson is the one it doesn't intend to teach. Avoid hordes entirely, stay mobile, and accept that some areas are just gone. And that motorcycle? That's the game's smartest mechanic, and most people don't realize it. The real lesson is the bike. Mobility is survival. Staying in one place makes you a target. The game's open world shows rural areas lasting longer than cities, which tracks lower population density means slower spread, but eventually everywhere falls. Remember that mobility trumps firepower. We'll see this pattern again in the Masterclass tier, but done correctly. It's fun, it's tense, but it's still a game where you're winning fights you'd lose in real life. Dead Island ranks here because it blends survival horror with melee combat and co-op, which is both its strength and weakness. You're trapped on a tropical island overrun by infected, and the game focuses on crafting weapons and working together, which is actually solid survival logic. The melee focus is smart. Guns are loud and ammo is scarce, so you're bashing zombies with pipes, hammers, and electrified machetes, which is way more sustainable than shooting. Real survival would rely on quiet, reusable weapons, and Dead Island gets that, even if it makes it way too easy to repair and upgrade gear. The co-op angle is crucial. Groups survive longer than individuals. You need people to watch your back, share resources, and handle different tasks. The game's RPG elements let you specialize tank, medic, damage dealer, which mirrors how real groups would divide roles. But here's the catch. Dead Island is grindy and repetitive. You're doing the same fetch quests and fighting the same zombie types over and over, which dulls the survival edge. In a real outbreak, the repetition would be psychological torture. The same fear, same scavenging, day after day, until you break. Here's where Dead Island nails something most survival games miss entirely: boredom. The repetitive fetch quests everyone complains about, that's accidentally the most realistic part. Real survival is repetitive. Same scavenging routes, same fear, same tasks, day after day until you break mentally before you break physically. The game makes you feel it without meaning to, which brings us to a game that DID mean to make you feel it. The first State of Decay ranks mid because it was groundbreaking for community survival, but still too forgiving to be brutal. You manage a group of survivors, build a base, and deal with permadeath for characters, which was ambitious for its time and taught some harsh lessons. The game's best feature is character permadeath. You lose someone, they're gone. No reload, which forces you to care and plan carefully. That's real. People die in disasters, and you don't get them back. The psychological weight of that is crushing, and the game makes you feel it. Resource management is constant: food, medicine, ammo, building materials, and you're always one bad run from collapse, which mirrors how fragile survival really is. The zombie threats escalate: hordes, special infected, infestations, forcing you to adapt, which is smart. Static threats get easier over time, but evolving ones keep you on edge. But the game's still a bit easy. You can recover from mistakes, build back up, find new survivors, and the base defense is manageable with prep. State of Decay gets the structure of long-term survival right. It's just too gentle about showing you what that actually costs. You want to see that cost? That's coming in God tier, and it's not fun at all. Before that, though, we have to look at the classic zombie games we all know and love, I hope. Level 4, Cult Classics. Okay, real talk. These next games are ridiculous, objectively absurd. Squirt guns, bedazzled chainsaws, playing as the zombie. This is where survival horror becomes survival comedy. But here's the thing that'll mess with your head. These cartoon games teach you improvisation and adaptability better than most realistic simulators. Let me prove it. Zombies Ate My Neighbors ranks cult classic because it's goofy, nostalgic, and accidentally teaches you improvisation and resource scarcity in the best way. This Super Nintendo gem has you rescuing neighbors from zombies, werewolves, and chainsaw maniacs using squirt guns, soda cans, and weed whackers, which sounds absurd, but is low-key survival genius. The game forces improvisation. You've got limited ammo for every weapon, so you're constantly switching between whatever works, which is exactly how real survival goes. You're not finding an armory, you're using a frying pan and hoping for the best. The level design teaches situational awareness. Zombies spawn everywhere. Neighbors are scattered, and you need to prioritize who to save and when, which mirrors triage in a real crisis. You can't save everyone, and trying will get you killed. The variety of enemies, zombies, mutants, evil dolls, forces adaptability, which is key. Real threats aren't uniform. You're dealing with different dangers requiring different tactics, but it's also cartoonish. You're not feeling the weight of survival. You're playing a fun arcade game, so the lessons are there but buried under humor and pixelated gore. It's cult classic tier because it's beloved, weird, and more useful than it looks, even if it's wrapped in 90s weirdness. That's almost as weird as Lollipop Chainsaw. You play a cheerleader slicing through the undead, and it's self-aware schlock, not survival horror. The game's lesson, if you can call it that, is speed and aggression. You're constantly attacking, dodging, and chaining combos, which, sure, keeps you moving, and mobility is survival. But you're doing it with a chainsaw, which in reality is the worst zombie weapon imaginable. Chainsaws are loud, heavy, need fuel, jam constantly, and if you mess up, you're cutting yourself. Not the zombie. The game's humor and style make it clear it's not trying to teach you anything practical, it's a parody, a middle finger to serious survival horror, which is fine. But it means if you're learning from this, you're learning wrong. The only real takeaway is confidence and momentum can carry you through chaos, which is psychologically true. Panic kills, action keeps you alive, but this game takes that to cartoonish extremes. The brutal truth is, Lollipop Chainsaw is entertainment, not education, and that's okay. It knows what it is. If your survival plan involves cheerleading and chainsaws, you're dead, but at least you'll look fabulous doing it. It's cult tier because it's memorable, absurd, and doesn't pretend to be anything else. Stubbs the Zombie ranks cult because you play as the zombie, which flips the script and accidentally teaches you how outbreaks spread and why humans fail. You're a 50s-era undead salesman infecting a retro-futuristic city, and it's darkly hilarious. The game shows infection mechanics from the zombie side. Every human you kill joins your horde, which is exponential growth, the exact reason real pandemics spiral out of control so fast. One infected becomes 10, becomes 100, and suddenly the military can't contain it, which is accurate. Diseases spread faster than responses. You also see human failures. They panic, they shoot each other, they barricade the wrong places, and you exploit that, which is what real zombies or infected would do. Not intentionally, but because humans are predictable under stress. The game's humor masks a grim truth. Society collapses not because zombies are unstoppable, but because people are stupid, selfish, and disorganized. But none of the games so far have been anywhere near as good as Level 5's, especially not the last one. Level 5? Nostalgic games. These are the games that defined zombie gaming, starting with the most popular. Plants vs. Zombies ranks nostalgic because it's a cute tower defense game that actually teaches resource management and defensive strategy better than most serious survival games. You're planting sunflowers and pea shooters to defend your lawn from waves of zombies. And it's brilliant. The game teaches economy and prioritization. You need sunlight, your resource, to plant defenses, and you can't build everything, so you choose what counters the current threat. That's real survival. Limited resources mean hard choices. Do you fortify the walls or stockpile food? You can't do both perfectly. The layered defense concept, slowing zombies, damaging them, finishing them off, mirrors real fortification strategy. One barrier fails, you need backups. The variety of zombie types, fast, armored, flying, forces adaptability, which is key in disasters. Threats evolve. Your plan has to evolve too, but it's also a puzzle game, not a survival sim, so you're not feeling the terror, just solving patterns. It's nostalgic tier because it's timeless, accessible, and smarter than it looks. House of the Dead ranks here because it's pure arcade action, light gun shooting zombies in the face, and while it's nostalgic and fun, it teaches you exactly one thing: aim for the head, which, okay, valid, but that's where the education ends. The game's on rails, you're not choosing paths or managing resources, just reacting to zombies popping out and shooting them before they hit you. That reflex training is actually useful. Real encounters would be sudden and violent, hesitation kills, and House of the Dead drills snap decisions into you. The boss fights add variety, mutated creatures that need strategy, which hints at evolved threats, but mostly you're just shooting. The game's plot, mad scientist, bioweapons, apocalypse, is classic horror schlock that doesn't teach survival. It teaches tropes. The brutal truth is House of the Dead is a reflex trainer disguised as a zombie game, and reflexes matter, but they're not enough. You need planning, endurance, resource management, all the stuff this game ignores because it's it's a quarter muncher from the 90s. The headshot lesson is real though. Destroying the brain stops most undead or infected. That's consistent across media and rooted in basic biology. No brain function, no threat. It's nostalgic because it's a classic, but it's not saving your life. It's just fun. Resident Evil 1996 ranks nostalgic because it invented the survival horror formula. Limited resources, tank controls, and a mansion full of undead. And even today, its lessons hold up. You're trapped in a sprawling estate, rationing ammo, solving puzzles, and running from zombies you can't always fight, which is survival horror perfection. The game teaches conservation. You've got maybe 15 bullets and 50 zombies, so you avoid combat, use knives, and only shoot when necessary, which is real survival logic. Ammo is finite, every shot counts, and fighting is a last resort. The resource management extends to healing items, saves, and inventory space, forcing constant risk assessment. Do you carry more ammo or healing? Do you backtrack for supplies or push forward? The mansion setting is claustrophobic, teaching you that enclosed spaces are death traps. One wrong turn and you're cornered with no escape. The puzzles add realism. Real survival isn't just combat, it's problem solving, navigating hazards, and adapting to obstacles. Resident Evil built the survival horror formula. Limited resources, careful movement, every encounter matters. It's foundational, it's influential, but it's not the end. Because the games coming next took that formula and asked, what if we stopped letting you win? Level 6, Masterclass games. Alright, safety's off. The next 3 games don't care about your fun. They care about teaching you. And what they teach is this: survival isn't heroic, it's not cinematic, and you're not special. You're just another person trying not to die. Let's see how long you last. Dying Light hits Masterclass because it nails the day-night cycle survival dynamic and makes mobility your best weapon. You're in a quarantined city, scavenging by day and fleeing for your life at night, and the parkour mechanics turn urban environments into playgrounds and death traps. The game teaches that daytime is for preparation, nighttime is for terror, which mirrors real survival. You work during safe hours and hide when threats peak. The infected are slow during the day, manageable with melee weapons and tactics, but at night, volatiles come out fast, deadly, and relentless, forcing you to run or hide. That escalation teaches you can't fight everything. Sometimes survival is about avoiding conflict entirely. The parkour emphasizes mobility. You're climbing, jumping, using rooftops, which is smart. Urban survival would rely on vertical movement, staying off streets where hordes gather. The melee focus is realistic. You craft weapons from scraps, they break, you improvise, which is how real survivors would operate. No gun caches, just whatever you find. The game's resource loop, scavenge, craft, survive, is grounded. You need food, water, and materials, and the city's picked cleaner over time, teaching you scarcity escalates. The co-op adds realism. Groups survive better, but more people mean more needs, more risk. The infection spreads through bites, the quarantine walls failing, the military retreating. It all mirrors pandemic collapse, containment fails, society fractures, and you're on your own. Dying Light shows you threats escalate, and mobility saves you. Good lessons. But it still lets you win fights you shouldn't. The next game doesn't give you that option. Dead Rising did something most games won't. It gave you a timer, not for drama, for realism. Because in real disasters, you don't have unlimited time. You have windows, critical moments, and if you waste them, people die, and you can't reload to save them. Let me show you why that's brilliant and brutal. Dead Rising ranks Masterclass because it drops you in a zombie-infested mall with a timer, limited saves, and the freedom to use anything as a weapon, which is chaos and creativity combined. You've got 72 hours to survive, save people, and uncover the outbreak's cause, and every choice matters. The timer teaches you survival isn't open-ended. You have deadlines, limited windows, and wasting time kills you, which is accurate. Real disasters have critical moments where action or inaction determines life or death. The weapon variety, anything from chainsaws to lawnmowers to teddy bears, teaches improvisation. You use what's available, not what's optimal. The psychopath bosses, humans who snap during the outbreak, show the real threat is people, not zombies, which is brutal and true. Disasters bring out the worst in humanity, and the most dangerous encounters are with the living. The survivor escort missions are frustrating but realistic. Saving people is hard. They panic, slow you down, and might betray you, mirroring real group dynamics. The photography mechanic is weird but clever, documenting the outbreak, which parallels how survivors would need to record information for authorities, assuming anyone's listening. The mall setting is iconic, Romero's Dawn of the Dead influence, and it's smart. Malls have supplies, but they're finite, and once they're gone, you're starving in a tomb of consumerism. The infection's cause, bioterrorism, and the military cover-up add layers of conspiracy that feel real. Governments lie, experiments leak, and civilians pay the price. The reality is, Dead Rising teaches you Survival is messy, moral, and time-sensitive. You can't do everything. You make hard calls, and some people die because you couldn't reach them. The game's difficulty spikes and save system are brutal, but that's the point. Real survival doesn't have checkpoints. It's masterclass because it respects consequences and doesn't let you play hero without cost. Left 4 Dead ranks masterclass because it perfected co-op survival and introduced the AI director, which dynamically adjusts difficulty, making every playthrough unpredictable, just like a real outbreak. You're 4 survivors fighting through hordes to escape, and teamwork is mandatory. The game teaches you can't survive alone, period. You need teammates to revive you, cover you, and share resources, which is survival basics. Isolated individuals die fast. Groups last longer. The special infected, hunters, smokers, tanks, force coordination. You can't solo them. You need callouts, focus fire, and tactics, which mirrors how real groups handle threats. Communication is survival. The horde mechanics are relentless. Noise attracts them, so you balance speed and stealth, which is accurate. In a real outbreak, every gunshot, every alarm brings more danger. The AI director's dynamic spawning means you can't memorize encounters. You adapt on the fly, which is real chaos. Disasters don't follow scripts. The game's pacing, safe room to safe room, mirrors real evacuation strategies. You move in stages, secure areas, restock, and push forward. You don't sprint to the end, you crawl. The finales hold out scenarios where you wait for rescue, teach defensive strategy, limited ammo, waves of enemies, and the need to prioritize targets. The infected types evolve, from common to special to tanks, showing threat escalation, which is pandemic realism. Diseases mutate, outbreaks worsen, and what worked yesterday fails tomorrow. The reality check is, Left 4 Dead respects teamwork and chaos. It doesn't let you Rambo, it forces cooperation and punishes lone wolves. The game's intensity, constant action, mirrors the exhausting reality of survival. You don't get breaks, the pressure never stops, and eventually you collapse. So, we've covered mobility, time pressure, and teamwork. 3 pillars of real survival. You'd think that's enough to prepare you. It's not even close, because none of these games make you face the one thing that kills more survivors than zombies: starvation or infection combined. And that's coming next. Level 7. God tier games. We've reached the end. 3 games. 3 different lessons about what actually kills you in an outbreak. Spoiler, it's not the zombies. Number 3 teaches you everywhere is a trap. Number 2 teaches you survival is boring, brutal, and inevitable failure. Number 1 teaches you the thing no one wants to admit. You'd become the monster. Let's start where most survival games end when you think you're safe. Resident Evil 2. Remake hits God tier because it takes the original survival formula and perfects it with modern tech, making every encounter terrifying and every resource precious. You're trapped in Raccoon City as the T-virus outbreak peaks, and the game refuses to hold your hand. The remake teaches resource scarcity better than almost any game. You've got limited inventory, sparse ammo, and enemies that soak bullets, forcing you to decide when to fight and when to run. That's real survival. You can't kill everything. Conservation is life, waste is death. The Lickers, blind but sound sensitive, teach you stealth and patience. Real threats don't always see you, but noise gets you killed. Mr. X, the unstoppable tyrant stalking you, adds persistent dread, teaching you nowhere is safe. You're always hunted, which mirrors the psychological breakdown of being prey constantly. The game's puzzles force you to explore dangerous areas methodically, teaching you survival requires problem solving under pressure, not just shooting. The infection's corporate origin, Umbrella's greed causing a citywide catastrophe, is horrifyingly realistic. Real disasters often stem from negligence, profit over safety, and cover-ups. Resident Evil 2. Remake perfects the survival horror formula. Scarce resources, persistent threats, no safe spaces. It's mechanically flawless, but it's still a game. You're playing Leon or Claire trained, capable protagonists. You win because the story says so. The next game doesn't give you that luxury. You're not the hero, you're just some random person in Kentucky, and the game's tagline tells you exactly how it ends. It's God tier because it's mechanically perfect, thematically rich, and psychologically brutal without losing the survival horror roots that made the original a legend. Project Zomboid lands in God tier because it's the most realistic zombie survival game ever made, and its tagline is literally, "This is how you died," which tells you everything. It's an isometric sandbox where you survive as long as possible in Kentucky during an outbreak, and the game is designed to kill you eventually. This game teaches survival is a grind, not a story arc. You're managing hunger, thirst, exhaustion, injuries, illness, depression, and boredom while avoiding zombies. And every system is interconnected and brutal. You need calories, but food spoils. You need water, but it gets contaminated. You need sleep, but nightmares and stress ruin rest, which is hyper-realistic. Real survival is managing 100 small things that snowball into death if you ignore them. The injury system is punishing. A scratch can infect you. A bite is death. Broken bones cripple you. you, and the game forces you to bandage, disinfect, and rest. Teaching you first aid isn't optional, it's survival. The zombie hordes are relentless. They don't despawn, they migrate, they break doors, and once an area is overrun, it's lost forever, which mirrors real pandemic spread, containment fails, safe zones collapse, and you're pushed into smaller, more desperate pockets. The game's skill system is grounded. You're not gaining superpowers. You're learning carpentry to board windows, fishing to supplement food, mechanics to maintain your car, which is realistic skill progression. Survival rewards practical knowledge, not combat stats. The mental health mechanics, depression from isolation, panic from danger, boredom from routine, teach you psychological collapse is as deadly as physical threats, which is backed by disaster psychology. People break mentally before physically. The permadeath and no-win condition drill into you that survival isn't beating the game, it's delaying the inevitable, which is the harshest, most honest take on apocalypse survival in gaming. Project Zomboid is the most realistic zombie survival simulator ever made, and that's exactly why most people quit. It's too tedious, too slow, too depressing, which is the point. Real survival isn't fun. It's grinding through another day, managing 100 small tasks, knowing one mistake ends you, knowing you'll slip eventually. The game respects that brutal honesty, but here's what it doesn't show you. What that does to your soul. The moral weight, the choices, the person you become when survival means doing horrible things. That's why the #1 spot goes to a game that isn't about mechanics at all. The Last of Us earns God tier not because of its gameplay, though that's solid, but because it understands survival isn't about mechanics, it's about what you lose along the way. The moral compromises, the people you fail, and the humanity you sacrifice just to see another sunrise. You're Joel, smuggling a kid across a fungal-infected America, and the game breaks you emotionally while teaching you hard truths. The game's infected are grounded in real biology. Cordyceps fungus actually controls insects, and extrapolating that to humans is terrifying and plausible. It's not magic, it's evolution, weaponized. The stages of infection, runners, stalkers, clickers, bloaters, teach escalation, threats evolve. Early stage infected are fast and aggressive. Late stage are blind but deadly, forcing different tactics, which mirrors real pandemic progression. Diseases mutate, symptoms change, and what worked before fails. The stealth mechanics are survival genius. You avoid conflict because resources are scarce and noise attracts hordes. Teaching you real survival is about not being seen, not winning fights. The crafting system, turning scissors and alcohol into makeshift weapons, is realistic improvisation. You're not finding military gear, you're using trash to survive. But here's where The Last of Us transcends gaming. The human enemies, bandits, cannibals, militias, are more dangerous and complex than infected, showing you the real apocalypse threat is other survivors, not zombies. The game forces moral choices. You kill to protect, you lie to survive, you abandon strangers because saving them risks your own life, which is brutal honesty about disaster ethics. Altruism dies fast when resources vanish. The relationship between Joel and Ellie, surrogate father and daughter, drives home that emotional connections are survival tools. They give you purpose, motivation, and humanity, but they're also vulnerabilities. Caring about someone makes you reckless, desperate, and ultimately more dangerous. The game's world building shows societal collapse in stages, quarantine zones clinging to martial law, abandoned cities reclaimed by nature, isolated survivor communities barely holding on, and the Fireflies chasing a vaccine that might restore civilization. Except it won't, because the game's ending admits some collapses are irreversible. The psychological realism is gut-wrenching. Joel's trauma from losing his daughter shapes every decision. Ellie's survivor's guilt from being immune drives her recklessness. And the game never lets you forget that survival isn't heroic. It's ugly, selfish, and traumatic. The enemies aren't evil, they're desperate, same as you, and the game makes you question if you're the hero or just another monster trying to survive. It's God tier because it's not a game about surviving zombies, it's a game about surviving humanity, including your own, and it's the most emotionally devastating, thematically rich, and brutally honest depiction of apocalypse survival in any medium. If you enjoyed this video and want to see 7 levels of zombie movies, click the video on the screen.